Hello everyone, my name is Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy Artist, and today we are painting this lovely Highland cow. She's a little bit of a high society cow with a precious little hearts and pearls, and she is all ready for Valentine's Day, or in my opinion, a loving theme with hearts can be great all year round. So I think she's just adorable. She's been a big favorite, and we've been painting her all over Oklahoma and Texas here in the Midwest. But all over the United States, I can bring her to you as well with our online painting class and our painting kit. So this will be the inspiration. And there's different ways that you can enjoy her. You can buy a print from me online if you want to go that route, or you can learn how to paint with me too. So it's very fun. Love painting cows. They are a true pleasure. And so we're going to do that today. So again, this is our inspiration, what we do here in the studios. And then we're going to be doing a smaller size with a 9 by 12 with our online class today. So we'll be switching views over to the other table here in just a little bit. And so I'm going to talk about the traceable that comes with the kit and all your supplies. And then we'll get started and teach you how to paint step by step. All right, so we're going to go ahead and switch camera views here really quick. So let me go ahead and see what's going on. I had to put my little peepers here. I'll switch here. All right. So I'm going to pull closer. I'm going to put my model here in front of me. Your patience while I continue getting set up here. All right. So we have all of our supplies laid out, and your painting kit is available at tipsyartist.com. And it comes with everything that you need with the exception of the water and whatever container you decide to put the water in, but everything else comes with the kit. So let's go ahead and talk about our very first steps here. So with your kit, we have a canvas panel, 9 by 12. We have the traceable line art and the transfer paper. There's also tape that comes with it. So all that is in your little setup there. And so what I'm going to do first, let's talk about how to do this. So I have the transfer paper. I always make sure that the dull gray side faces up and the shining black side faces the canvas. Now I've worked ahead a little bit here, so we're going to talk about how to get to this point here. So I just center the transfer paper, and then with this particular design, I like to go ahead and move it down to where it is just flush with the edge, the bottom edge of the canvas. That way it'll line up perfectly. Gives you a lot more space up here to deal with, but we can just add extra hearts too. Hearts are really simple to freehand. But then the design is just pretty much centered, except it's not centered vertically. It is centered horizontally, but then at the bottom, again, like I said, I place it flush with the bottom of the canvas here. And then I only tape up here at the top. So I tape the transfer paper down first, then I go ahead and tape the paper down on top of that and to the canvas. I like to make sure that the sides are free and clear. So it's nice and stable up top, but it's nice and free so where I can lift up and check my work as I trace, make sure that I get all those details in, because once you lift this up away from this, you're never going to be able to place it back down and get it completely lined back up to where it was. So it's really important to double check all your details, make sure you get everything in place, then you can go ahead and remove this. So I have done that. So I'm going to go ahead and actually one step ahead. Let me go ahead and go back real quick. All right, so on the trace, let's talk about how to do that. So with your kit, you've got a pencil. So we're going to go ahead and every single place that you see a line, we're going to trace over that line. So you're going to follow everything that I've done here. So that's going to take a little bit of time. Just be patient with it. Go ahead and do all that. Parts that are filled in, I do go ahead and fill all that in to where the black will match the black. It's going to look like just a dark pencil line to begin with, but we do want to fill all that in. So for example, that would be our nostrils here and our eyes. Be really careful to leave the whites of your eyes. If you do happen to cover it up though, I've got a neat little trick that I'm going to teach during the painting technique to reclaim that white flash point just in case. But so don't be too concerned if it happens to get covered up, but if you can, try to keep it in place. All right, so I did go ahead and transfer that. Let me go ahead and take this off. Once I'm done, I can just remove this, and this can actually just go in the trash. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Now your kit also comes with a permanent marker. So I go ahead and let me bring this closer to the camera. So you can see how the light part, that's what it will look like initially. It will look like just a graphite pencil line. So I'm going to go ahead and do a hard black line with the permanent marker that comes with your kit. I'm going to go over all of those outlines. The only thing I didn't cover up with the black hard line, there's a little bit of a nuance on the very front center part of the nose. I left that light because I didn't want this dark line to have to contend with in that area since it's a little bit light. But other than that, everything else can have a dark line over it. And that will actually really help us when we go to paint. It's nice to have that as a reference so that it becomes muted and subdued when we paint, but it also bleeds through just enough to where you will not lose all of your hard work with your trace here, which is really important for beginners because sometimes they can swipe with a brush and then, oops, they can't see anymore and they lose a sense of navigation as they work through the painting process. So this is a nice little trick. I love it. I use it all the time with all of my paintings. All right, so here we go. We've got a great place to start. This is going to give us a wonderful foundation. I've got my paint plates out. I do have a little bit of a start here with some titanium white and lamp black. The paint kit that you'll get with this particular painting will look like this. This is what we'll use. This comes with your kit too. And as I showed you earlier, these are also your tools that come with your kit. And then let me go ahead and introduce you to your little painting family here. All right, so my brushes are a little bit old. Yours will be fresh and brand new, but they're pretty much the same size and same materials. They're basically golden Taklon brushes. And this is Mama brush. So she's a 1/2 inch flat. And then we have Little Buddy, and he is a 1/4 inch flat. And then we have a fun little liner brush. I use this for my details, and I call this Little Bit. So again, Mama, Little Buddy, and then Little Bit. So those are all our brushes that we'll be using. We have our napkins out. Your kit also has an apron that you can use to help protect your clothing. And again, we've got our paint out. Now, I've got some older kits that I've been using so that I can use up my paint. So I'll continue to work on these and use those up. So, and that's really good news for you because I think I'm on like painting 3 with this particular one. So they're very long lasting and awesome. So I like them. They're really, really good paint, long lasting. They've got a really nice thick quality to them, really good opaque coverage. Okay, so to get started, we're going to go ahead and get started with our background first. So I am going to use the Mama brush. Your brush will be new, so you do want to make sure you give it a nice little spin in the water here nearby. Then go ahead and dry off a little bit. That'll make it nice and flexible. And we're going to start with a little bit of a light blue in the background. So I'm going to do some cobalt blue here. We're going to start with about a 1/4 size dollop. And if you're wondering about the white, I would also recommend about a 1/4 size dollop with that. And then also with the lamp black, probably not as much. I know I have a lot here, but you could just do like a pea size amount or a little dime size dollop of your lamp black, and you should be good to go on that. All right, I'm also going to add a little touch of the ultramarine blue in case we want to go a little bit darker with some of that blue in the background. And we also have a little touch of yellow ochre, just little hints of that happening in our background as well. So we'll do a little pea size amount of that. All right, we are looking great. And I think we've got a good eye on everything. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Mama brush. We're going to pick up a nice big dollop of the white. And we're going to push in some of that cobalt blue, mix that together. You can look at the ultramarine blue. It's really about the same. Like there's not much difference there. The only reason why I'll use that a little bit in case I want to have a darker concentration of that as an accent in my sky. All right, we're going to go ahead and start to work this into our background. So I'm going to do what looks like little cross strokes back and forth here. You can add a little bit of water. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of maneuvering here. Keep running into that cute little plant. Okay, so we're going to crisscross back and forth. Feels like you make the letter X over and over again. I'm going to add a little bit of white to this as I work, crisscross back and forth. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like with a little hint of that blue. So I'm going to do a little touch of that ultramarine blue that's a little bit darker. And you can see it just adds a little bit of variety in the sky to take it to a little bit of a darker shade. And I'm going to continue to just work back and forth here. Let's grab a little bit of water that will help the paint become a little bit more fluid. And just work all the way into that background. And as I work, I like to pick up a lot of that white and just work back and forth in here. Crisscross back and forth. And the white, cobalt blue. And let's grab a little bit more white. And then as I work, I like to go ahead and hold that brush like more over to the side, parallel to the canvas. That'll give me a nice light hand. It allows a lot more of that white to just kind of rest on the top surface. It's like that little bit of cloud cover happening in the background. Continue to work this into our background here, just filling all that in. Also just adding in a little bit more of that white. And again, just crisscross. It feels like you're making what feels like the letter X over and over again. Lots of repetition here. Let's grab a little bit of water and just continue on that journey. Add a little bit of water. Now we have our nice hard line. So when I add a little bit of water to this paint, I can do just a slight wash of paint like right over the surface. That way I don't have to be too awfully precise about my cut-in work. Now, if you are, sometimes my type A people are like, no, I cannot. So if that is the case, then here's how you can be careful. All right, so hold the brush a little bit more like you'd hold a pencil and just do lines that come in and around that design work. That'll give you a little bit more precision, and then you can go back to holding the brush over to the side. But like, especially with those little hearts, rather than do a cut in, I'm just going to do a quick wash over the top, and you can see how they're bleeding through, so I'm not losing the shape of those at all, which makes that very nice. It's really great for beginners. I'll go ahead and do a little bit of a cut in around this horn here. So add a little bit of water. That just helps that paint really flow. Switch back over to more of that flat side of the brush. Continue on with that wonderful repetition. Then a little bit of white. That adds a nice little accent into your sky. So this beautiful blue sky is just going to go all the way in and around this lovely cow here. And you can add more intensity to it if you want. Again, just do little tiny strokes there of that darker ultramarine blue. See how that's kind of fun to add that in and just kind of crisscross that out. A nice soft blend. Something else fun that you can add to, this is a little bit of some Viridian. If you want to add a little bit of this into the mix, totally optional, but you can add a little bit of this into your sky as well. Again, just kind of crisscross that out back and forth. just a little bit different. And again, just continuing on with a lot of that white and crisscrossing back and forth. I also mentioned we'd have little touches of that yellow ochre, so we're going to go ahead and add a few of those little touches in the background. Just a little bit of warmth happening there. Touches in there. You know, lots of repetition and what just feels like that crisscross action back and forth. And don't forget about your white. Lots more white softly blended in the water. More of that cobalt blue and that white. We're going to take that all the way down here to the base. Cobalt blue and white. I do want to make sure that I don't lose my little hearts in here. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. So that I can still see them. And there they go. Just nice. White. Turn that handle more over to the side. Scrolls back and forth. Water and white as we go, and more of that cobalt blue. Really starting to probably feel how lovely it is to have that dark, hard outline that stays intact while you work in this background color. I love it because it helps me just be very relaxed. And I don't have to worry about all that crazy cutting work. It would take forever. Crisscross back and forth. I'll turn that brush more over to the side. A little bit of white in there. Really working in with a lot of repetition, light sweeping strokes. They're fast, heavier pressure. And it's pushing a little bit of that. Okay. All right, really pretty. Let's go ahead and rinse out. And dry off. All right, now we're going to go ahead and start to work into our cow. And this time we're going to be working with some raw umber and work on the base. So we'll do about a nickel-sized dollop of the raw umber. Also, let's get some burnt sienna. And a nickel-sized dollop of that. And then let's get some more yellow ochre, just in case. Mix our burnt sienna and our raw umber together. And a little bit of water. And we're going to go ahead and start to work into the shape using the mama brush. We're doing a base here. It's a little bit translucent, but again, we just want a foundation. And I'll go ahead and work into the horns here. I want to make sure I still see them. All my line work. So if it's not translucent enough, you do want to add a little bit of water to it to where it is translucent. This gets to be pretty tiny in here, so I'm going to use really quickly. I'm going to come in with my little bit, work into that color, do a quick little twirl here. And we're going to go ahead and into this horn. Again, we just want a nice light wash of this color. Into that little horn. Very carefully, we're holding the little bit brush just like you'd hold a pencil. Gives us more precision. I'm also going to use this to come in over the around the eyes. I'm going to have a little bit more of the burnt sienna though. It'll lighten up. And then my yellow ochre, it's light up a little bit. Be really careful. Do a little twirl. Again, we want to be careful as we come in around that shape. And then around this eye. So hold it like a pencil. And overlapping over that. Want the black of my eye to be still very black, and I don't want that paint to overlap. And yellow ochre, and we're keeping it really light and right around that eye. Let's go back to our mama, and we're going to work into the rest of the fur. It's a nice translucent wash. I'm going to avoid the nose area. So that shape around that, I'm going to paint around that. And I work in, do a soft blended line in and around that yellow ochre with the brown. Get a nice soft fade between those two colors. Just going to pull down into this shape. And we're just working in a nice base coat on the fur. So as I mentioned, I'm going to avoid the little nose area here. So I'm going to take this brown fur and take it just right around this line work. of the water, make sure that we get total flow into the pores of the canvas. We've got more layers that we can work on, but this is just our first base coat of that dark color. Continue working this in over the top, or I'm sorry, over the bottom. And I'll avoid the heart, but the little pearls, see, I can do a light wash over those too. That way I'm not having to be so meticulous about preserving that shape. And I'm going to teach you a nice little technique to paint back in the pearls. It's very fun, very easy, I promise. Not hard at all to come back in and do little circles, just like one little touch of the brush actually, or the end of the handle. It's a neat little trick. So working in that base now. This is our raw umber and a little bit of burnt sienna. And we're going to continue covering up that fur. I'm going to be careful around the heart here. That's nice. Okay. So this is a great foundation so far. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out. Dry off. Let's get our other brushes out of the bath. All right, so next up, let's make sure and get some crimson red out. All of that. And also some vermilion, just kind of a nice orange quality to it. And then let's get some more burnt sienna. And we still have a lot of our raw umber, so I think we're good there. Oh, you know what? Let's also get some lemon yellow. Sweet off of that. All right. So in the center of this nose here, I'm going to grab some white, mix that with our crimson red. We're making a nice, really pretty light pink. And we're going to go ahead and place this into this part of the nose here. A little bit more of that white and still top section here. That darker pink, it'll come in just underneath that. Using the little bit brush, we're going to do a little twirl into that paint. And this is the pink that we just mixed up with crimson and our white. And we're going to start to subdue that black line. It'll eventually just read like a shadow because we're just going to paint right over the top with the pink. Twirl into that paint. Pull it out. Go back in with some white and our yellow ochre here. And we're going to go ahead and work in this little top section here. White. That lemon yellow. And tiny little downward diagonal strokes off to the side here. Again, with that lemon yellow and that yellow ochre. Just teeny tiny little dashes. And then when you get out to the side, you lift off with a light hand. A little bit more the white and the lemon yellow. We're going to come around in that little section there. And curve that around. Little tiny outward, downward diagonal strokes. Now I'm going to go back into that little crimson and the white for that darker pink there. Let's go a little bit more white. Tiny soft curve of that pink. Rinse out. The white and that yellow. I'm going to kind of just softly go around that edge right there. White, lemon yellow. Soft little circular strokes. White, lemon yellow. Get soft little circular half circle strokes around that edge. And then up here at the top, we're going to kind of come down like little tiny little strokes of like hair texture, just right over the top. We're just going to start to softly obscure that last remnant of dark line. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of that vermilion and just do like tiny little strokes in here. It's going to bring in a little tiny bit of coral. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of this yellow ochre, lemon yellow. And we're going to start to come underneath here and do some soft little diagonal strokes to the side with that white, lemon yellow, yellow ochre. And again, just underneath. Soft little strokes off to the side. White. Soft little hair-like texture. All right, now this bottom lip here, we're going to go ahead and work in some of our burnt sienna and our yellow ochre, and we're going to go ahead and work into that shape. Burnt sienna, a little bit of that raw under, put that in a little bit here too. Just a little bit of pink while we're there, a little touch of that. base coat in there. Cover that up. All right, now time for a little black. So a little bit of black, and we're gonna line right in through here. Get a little bit of a soft fade into the next color. That's actually a good look. And then we're gonna take that black just kind of all the way around here. A little bit of a soft curve. So just a soft little point here. Just define that. And then I'm going to go over these little tiny nostrils here with that black very carefully. Little point right up there. And tiny little point. Soft curve. Brings out. Now let's add a little bit of hair texture over this bottom lip area. So we're going to do a little bit of that crimson with that white and just soft strokes. It almost gives like a little bit of a pink hue to it. The little strokes kind of feel like little tiny parentheses, and we're going to do a little bit of that raw umber. And soft little curve strokes that just go all over the surface area here. Switch directions a little bit. So this side you do a parentheses this way you do parentheses to this way. Gives you that little bit of texture. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of yellow ochre. And just do a soft little curve right there in the middle. All right. We'll go on with all right, so now we're going to go ahead and start to work on more of the, let's do the horns next. All right, so we're going to spin the plate around here a little bit. We're going to do some titanium white, teeny amount of the black. We're going to make a really light gray. And we're going to do this over the top. I'm going to grab some water. Make that a lot more fluid over the top here. White right up into that little point. Coral. Got a little more white right over the top of this part. Halfway down, go ahead and rinse out. And then let's grab some of that yellow ochre. And we're just going to do a little bit of a soft overpaint. Let's grab some water. Soft overpaint, a little bit of firm pressure that helps soften up that lighter gray and with that yellow ochre. And then down here at the base, we're going to come back in with a little black and raw umber and work that into the base here. Again, we don't want that line, so we're going to do rinse out here and then a little bit of firm pressure, a soft fully blend between the two. Oh, and we'll go over to the other side, get a little bit of water and our light gray. We're going to go ahead and work this into the top. A little bit more of that white right up next to the very tip top here. That's out. And bring in some of that raw umber. And let's pick up some of that yellow ochre and right in the middle. A bit over paint. Right here, with that excess. Firm pressure helps soften those lines together. Black and bronze line is here at the bottom. And firm pressure to kind of soften it. Follow it all the way up to the top. So I'm gonna take off my, really cold outside still, but we've got some direct sun finally coming in through the windows. It's kind of heating up back here. Just really nice. Okay. Lining one more hit of just some pure white right along this very top part here. Use my pinky to kind of help brace, stabilize. Soft blend here with there, there's that little tip top. White one more time here, right along the very tip top part, just lining the top part of the form. Wipe off the excess and just do kind of a soft fade between the two. And I just have a real subtle little hint of that pink in there. That little rag of that, throw a little bit of water. Inside a little bit of pink in there in that horn. Get clean. Just do a little fold, get some length, and double use out of that napkin. All right, now we can go ahead and start to place in a little bit more of the hair texture that comes in over the top here. So I'm going to start with my little buddy brush. We've got our white and our lemon yellow. Little tiny, it feels like you do those little soft curves. It feels like little parentheses or like a lazy S. A lot of that happening. We're going to start with our little buddy and then we're going to shift over to our little bit for one of the little finer details of the hair texture. And then some nice chunky highlights here. And this is our lemon yellow. Over. Right. What's nice is our brown is already serving as a really nice shadow underneath. So a soft curve here next to one. And we'll grab some of that vermilion. That gives them a little orange, soft curve here. And this is that vermilion, yellow ochre, soft curves. A lot of repetition, just building those layers of curls. Be careful around the eyes. Want to keep those nice and bright, showing up here. Thinking about that white. The white is a really nice highlight in here too. Really helps brighten a lot in the hair. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of that darker brown and burnt sienna. I'm going to come back in and do a little full sweep of that in the middle of the ear. Add that shadow. So I'm turning the little buddy brush kind of more over to the flat side. It's kind of doing little pushes in that direction. Get that shadow back in there. That's raw umber and our burnt sienna. We're going to do a nice little push. Get that shadow back in there. Also want to accentuate the shape of the face. So we're going to come in with more of that raw umber, burnt sienna. And underneath that black. And on the sides. And we have a little bit more of a touch of black in here too. Just kind of push that in. I'm push in a little bit of this black here. A little bit of shadow, and then around here, put the shadow in there. I'm back with more of the burnt sienna and raw umber. Start to kind of work that in. Tiny little strokes there. Now I'm going to stop being careful around these pearls, and the pearls are just honestly more of a reference, and you can go back and look at, there's always a picture with this. Of course, online I see it too, but I'm going to teach you how to just dot those on, because it is just too challenging to try to work in and around those. It really limits your freedom and the ability to push in this hair texture like we want. So it's just what more of a reference there. I'm going to just continue working in this little bit of hair texture. Again, it's really pretty. I'm going to rinse out some a little too dark in there. I come back in with a lot of white. Soft little strokes there. A little more of that yellow ochre in there too. That's really pretty in there. Crimson in there is kind of pretty too. A little bit of pink, but it's really nice. Soft, tiny strokes. Just keep working that in. White's really pretty in there too. That burnt sienna. This is very therapeutic to just work in all this hair texture in here. Lemon yellow. Yellow. Okay, yellow. Get more paint here. More of this lemon yellow. We got plenty of white still. So just want to make sure we've always got plenty. Rinse out. We're going to start to work in with our little bit brush now, get some finer details in here. All right, so I'm going to be using a little bit of water, a little bit of that vermilion. Little tiny strokes in here. Now we're going to start to build those layers with a tinier brush. White, it's a lot of repetition. A lot of soft curves. Now, as we come around the eye, I'm going to come in with a little bit more of that yellow ochre, soft twist. We have our burnt sienna in there too. Mix those two together. So get a soft twirl. I'm going to go ahead and line the eyes. Kind of looks like you're putting on some eyeliner. And I'll pull down. And same thing over here. Kind of feels like you're lining the eyes and kind of pull that down. Touch of white with that too. Twirl. Little tiny touch of white. And with this more delicate brush, you can start to work in just tiny little hair strands that come in and around the eye. Be playful with the color a little bit. Yellow ochre, little tiny strokes, little tiny strokes of the white. Remember to alternate your strokes, like one is this side and some go this side. Sometimes I do bigger chunks of hair that come in the front. I push on that. Let it be a little bit more chunky. Kind of vary the strokes a little bit. And then some will be a little bit more wispy. White and ochre. Let's go ahead and do a quick little pull. Some of those little delicate hairs coming over the top here. Down in front. Got a little bit of water. A little twirl because it's a nice fine point. Little tiny wispies. Little side here on the ears. That was a little touch of that vermilion in there, kind of had that dramatic little coral effect. And some tiny hairs that come in around the nose. Now I'm working back into that burnt sienna. Let's do little tiny, some more of that burnt sienna. We're going to start to work that underneath our eye. Tiny strokes of hair underneath the eye there. And then we're going to pull in that raw umber too. And there's a little bit of that raw umber, a little push of that right next to the eye. Again, our burnt sienna, kind of pull that in right next to the shape here. Little soft curves. Yeah, this is more burnt sienna. We're going to do little soft curves that come around. Still creating layers of hair texture. A bit of black. And work that back and forth between the two. Down. I'm going to do a little bit more hair texture on the sides here. So a little bit more of that white. Teeny tiny little curves. It's really delicate. All that white and yellow ochre. And we're going to work this little tiny wispies out to the side. And hair wispies out to the side. Now I'm going to do a little bit of that soft pink with that yellow ochre in there and some white. water, not swirl. Just around this outline through here. And through here. Back in light pink. Oops. It's out. Just a little bit more of a wash of white here. Just kind of sweep this back and forth. And then re-emphasize a little nostrils here. So I kind of got a little bit covered up by some of those lighter colors. So repaint those, sharpen those up a little bit with the black again. Softly, patiently go back into those little tiny curves. Also, what might be easier, we have, remember our permanent markers. So here's a little tip, though. You have to use these only on dry paint. If you put them on wet paint, it'll just ruin your marker. So you do want to be really careful and not, let that dry, and you can use that to kind of go back in and set up a little bit with some of your darker details. I'm going to come in with a little bit of that burnt sienna. And quick little diagonal strokes, get a little texture here and through the middle. Now, clean brush. Soften that section just a little bit. Oh, yeah, I've got a little tiny line of the burnt sienna. I'm gonna do a quick little mark, a circle on the eye here, a little half circle, the burnt sienna here on this side of the eye. And then I mentioned the little white of the eye here. If that happens to get lost at all, there's a little trick you can do. You take the end of the handle, dip into the white, and then just go straight forward with a little dot of white. So that's really helpful to bring out that pop of light. Make sure that brings a lot of personality to the cow. Just soften that just a little bit. And then continuing on with bits of white and lemon yellow, like soft hair. And kind of build that hair texture. So there's a little bit of burnt sienna in there. See how it's really back and forth. this way and then this way. And again, it feels like you do little parentheses. A little bit of that raw umber and burnt sienna. I'm just going to do like little tiny texture underneath there so it's not so perfectly lined. So tiny touches kind of gives that hair texture. Those soft curve pull-ins. All right, it's looking really, really good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and work on my little heart here. I'm going to do some white. So right here, soften curve that up. Look at that ultramarine blue. Roll that in on the other side. Oops. Work that in. We'll push that into that color. It's going to softly blend. Smooth that out. Turn that handle just a little bit over to the side. And then we're going to do a little touch of the vermilion. With our brush to load up with some of that white. We're going to do a little quick touch of white right over the top. Blue. It's going to outline. Coral. All right, now let's talk about those little pearls. Okay, so we've got, let's see, where are we at this? So I want my mama brush. We're going to use the mama brush, and we still have lots of titanium white here. So I need to make sure it has a nice full dollop to dip into. So I'm going to use the handle. This time it's the ball handle on the end. And I'm going to dip into that white paint. See how that looks there? And then I'm just going to push straight down. And see how that gives me just this perfect little white dot. This is a really fun little trick to make these pearls. And then you can just dot these out. Dipping in and then going straight forward. Okay. See, there they are. No need to worry about them disappearing. And then we're gonna have a few little, danglies that come down here. Big. Bigger push for that bigger pearl that hangs off. And we'll have a couple more that a little bit bigger there. All right, and then we can continue with this fun, like in here, kind of do a little bit of a spin for those pearls that happen out in the sky. Everybody see one of those little circles. I'm gonna just do a little bit of a spin, but I want it to be a little bit bigger. And if you want much smaller little circles, then you can use a smaller brush over here with just the end of the handle and dip in for a much smaller circle. That's another little trick. So that gives you a good start on those. And then see here, I'm gonna add a little bit of water. We're gonna come in with our crimson. And we're gonna start to just hold the brush like you'd hold a pencil. You can just draw on those little hearts and paint in. This is just that crimson, really without much of a mix, just kind of in a pure state. If you want, you can add some of that vermilion to it to kind of give it more of a coral color. Kind of warms it up a little bit. Soft curve and push. Yeah, a little bit of white to it. Get a lighter pink. And all the pink, a little bit of red. There's a little white with that crimson, really pretty, nice little mix between the two. Do a little push into those little shapes. Push and then curve. And a little bit of white to it. And a push and curve. Take it back to a point. Oh, did not mean to hit the camera, sorry. And you can continue to add, like up and through here. There's a couple of different options if you wanted. You could, take your permanent marker and write a name if you wanted to, or you can make, more. You can just kind of continue on with these little hearts. Crimson. Water, upset. Just some more of those pearls. A little dash of white here. And then we can do little lines. Do some of those, been sitting here a lot. Let's give a recap on that. Our Viridian and ultramarine blue. Let's mix those two together. Let's add a little water. It gives a dark teal color. I'm going to expand into that. And coral. These are just those little lines, little strings with beads that can hang down in the sky. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you could go smaller. So you could do little tiny dots. Little tiny beads. So trail off there. Or there's like a couple of tiny little beads, on the top of the bigger ones. Add little accents are fun. All right, those are neat. Okay. And then, of course, your last step would be to sign your masterpiece. So it's really important that you make sure and do it on dry. I would wait for everything to set up and dry. You can use your little bit brush to do the little twirl and then just real fine lettering. Also recommended is just using your permanent marker to sign your painting. A lot of beginners love this because it gives you a lot of precision and a nice fine point with the permanent markers. This is very easy. All right, so I think we are done with our little beautiful cow here. I may continue just plain making more hair. Sounds like something I would do. So you can definitely continue on with just more texture. Sometimes it takes a while to just build all those layers, but you can also just call it done too. All right, so thank you again so very much for joining me today. I had such a good time. She's such a beauty. And again, thank you so much. It's been so much fun. All the supplies that you need are on our website at tipsyartist.com. So we'll have this available as a painting kit, or you can just order it as a print too. If you just love the look of it, you don't want to have to learn how to paint, which I think is a true pleasure. But if you'd rather just buy the print, we have that also. We sell these on Michael's or on our website, tipsyartist.com as well. But y'all have a beautiful rest of the day, and we're going to be painting a lot this week with lots of new classes, so we'll be seeing you very, very soon. But again, have a wonderful day. Talk to you very soon, and we send you much love. Toodles.